All eyes may be on the Republican candidates as the Iowa caucuses begin. But President Biden has skin in the game, too. The Biden campaign sending top allies to Iowa, such as Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota. That's according to the New York Times. These allies are expected to hold a press conference tomorrow afternoon, just as the nation's first nominating contest kicks off. Their mission, sell the Democratic platform to voters. But are voters in Iowa and the country buying it? Joining us now, Principal Deputy Campaign Manager for President Biden's re-election bid, Quinton Fulks. Welcome, Quinton. Tell me, what is it you are looking for out of Iowa?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate the three of you on your new show. It's exciting. I'm glad to see you guys on there. So thanks for having me, and I apologize that I can't be there with you guys in person.
I blame the trains, Quinton. I blame the trains.
It's Amtrak, you know. Tomorrow, unfortunately, we're expecting more of the same. We saw President Biden give a speech about freedom and democracy, and we're going to see that on full display tomorrow. No matter who wins tomorrow, unfortunately, it's going to be more of the same. We're going to see Republicans double down on an agenda that's exactly and extremely out of touch with the American people. And the real winner is going to be Joe Biden, because whoever emerges and whoever is the winner, we are going to have the contest that we want against the freedom and democracy that Joe Biden is fighting to protect, and what the MAGA Republicans are trying to do to roll it back.
Okay, Quinton, let's talk about that then. What do you have to say to the critics? Because there's a lot of people in the papers giving advice, saying that, well, you know, you need to look at what Obama did in his 2012 reelect, and what the Biden campaign is currently doing is not up to snuff. When it comes to just the infrastructure piece at first, what is your response to that you all have not hired up in a way that you need to be able to compete in 2024?
Well, first of all, what I would say to these critics is that I understand what they're feeling. They're feeling urgency. They feel afraid. Democracy is at stake. We're not just saying that and then dragging our feet. We're building a campaign that's going to be the campaign that we need to be effective to win in November. And Simone, I mean, you mentioned the critics. I saw a piece yesterday about some of your takes on our messaging and the fact that we should, you know, let go of some of the things. Look, we're not going to let go of the fact that Americans are paying too much for prescription drugs. President Biden's not going to let go of the fact that we need to continue to do everything we can to reduce student loan debt. He's not going to let go of the fact that Trump is out there saying that he wishes the economy would fail. He's not going to let go of the fact that we need to continue to drive unemployment down, that we need to continue to make sure that inflation is decreasing. And so, you know, to the critics, I will say that our campaign understands the urgency. We are rising to the occasion to meet the moment. We are doing what we need to do to make sure we're going to win in November. And that's not dictated by one poll or any given moment in time. That's dictated by putting down a plan and building an infrastructure that's going to make sure that we're competitive and victorious in November of 2024.
Y'all, he's talking about my comments to Politico yesterday, where at first I did say that part of the reason the Biden campaign folks aren't listening to some of these folks was those are the same people saying Joe Biden couldn't win in 2020. But I did also say maybe you need to let Bidenomics go, because the people don't seem to be grasping it, but they do grasp when their, you know, gas goes down. So I take your point, Quinn, but I've worked on a lot of campaigns. The chairman has won some races over here, and he lost some races too. We've talked about them. What specifically, though, how are you all going to respond to what we all hear out there in the streets from voters, from young people saying they don't want to vote for Joe Biden for whatever reasons, from black voters who say, black voters in Georgia, where you know very well, who say, I don't know if I'm really feeling like that this administration has done anything for me, when the opposite is true. So many things have been done, but it's not breaking through. And so what is the plan to communicate that outside of the airways between now and really Labor Day?
Well, look, Simone, you've worked on presidential campaigns, you just alluded to. One, there's a matter of when people pay attention and when people decide to tune in. You know, right now, 3/4 of Americans are saying that they don't even believe Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. But to your point, you know, and just to speak candidly to it, look, we're going to have to build a massive ground infrastructure. You know, obviously, COVID took some capacity off of doors in 2020. We're going to have to train a new generation of organizers and get them back involved and out knocking doors. I'm very old school when it comes to that. I think the field is going to be one one of the biggest components to how we're able to get our message out, not only to speak to these voters, but to get them more involved. I really believe in the fact that African Americans should be knocking doors in their own communities, that young voters need to be out there on college campuses talking to their peers and their colleagues about what's at stake in this election. And so we're building the infrastructure to do that. We just announced our Battleground States Director. We're beginning to hire up in the states. I know you guys have seen that. Our campaign travel is ramping up. The president has been out and about. We saw him in Valley Forge. We saw him in South Carolina. We're going to continue to take this message directly to the American people so that when they tune in, we're ready to go. But again, we understand and we're building this campaign like democracy is at stake because it is.
Quentin, you got multiple problems here, and it results in you having to fight on two fronts at the same time. You've got, as Simone has just indicated, nervousness, let's just be polite about it, within your own ranks regarding the nominee of the Democratic Party, current President Joe Biden. But then on my side of the aisle, you've got Republicans who are clearly indicating how they're going to go at this campaign. Two ways. One, just a full frontal attack, all things, Hunter Biden and all of that. But then the subtext, and NBC News has been reporting on, recent indication by Republicans that they're going to possibly be casting doubts on whether Joe Biden can win legitimately in 2024, setting up narratives in a post-election world in which the election will likely be challenged again. How does this campaign tact in both of those situations to sort of hold the president's game in play so that rank and file voters come to the polls, respect the process, cast their vote? You guys have done the kind of work that you need to do to get those votes that you need. And this election, we can get through it as clearly and cleanly as we can.
Well, look, first of all, we're going to play the cards that we're dealt. Every campaign's different. I'm going to take a look, and our campaign's going to take a look at what's on the table, and we're going to make decisions based on that. When it comes to the stuff about Hunter Biden, I find it, ironic that the only branch of government that the Republicans fully control, or not branch, but the only chamber in Congress that Republicans fully control is the House, and they are continuing down this failed line of attack about attacking the president's family. It's probably what makes the House the most ineffective that it's been since the Great Depression. So I wish they focus on policy instead of attacking the president's family. But to the other point of that, look, we're very clear. We need to talk to our base. I'm very concerned about talking to base voters, making sure that we're bringing our voters back into the fold. I mean, I saw some of the polling that you guys had up. I think it's interesting when you see some of the numbers of Republican candidates that'll say that they won't vote for Trump and that are considering President Biden, even in Iowa. And I think that that's something to allude to. But we're going to continue to be very clear about what our message is, and that's the fact that MAGA Republicans led by Donald Trump pose an existential threat to freedom and democracy. And our challenge is making sure that we get that message out, but we also communicate it to our base voters. For me, this is about making sure that we solidify the Democratic base. That is top of mind for me every single day, whether it comes to paid media, whether it comes to our ground game, and everything in between, making sure where we send the president and the vice president, the first lady, the second gentleman. That's what we're going to do, and that's where my focus is.
Quentin, given that you already have Republican candidates questioning whether or not the president can win legitimately without any basis for that question, and given that you will most likely be running against an election denier come this general election, is the legal team of the Biden re-elect campaign making preparations right now for the possibility that a vote will be challenged?
I wish those Republican candidates would find the courage to say that about the frontrunner at their party instead of playing and pandering to try to get to his extreme MAGA supporters' votes. But when it comes to the president, look, our legal team is going to be prepared for whatever comes down the pipe. We know and unfortunately are all too familiar with the type of tricks that Republicans are going to play to make sure that people can't have the right to vote, to try to overturn election results and to try to just outright deny what is going on here. But we're going to be prepared to defend democracy on all fronts, whether that's internally from the campaign, externally, through legal means. So we're ready to engage that. But I do believe and I wish that the Republican Party would take a look inside and cast those same doubts about their own nominee or their presumptive nominees who are on the table that continue to double down and deny and refuse to say that Donald Trump tried to steal the election last time. Again, hard to take that criticism when they're falling for the same trick themselves.
Quentin Fulks, thank you so much for joining us. You have to sit at this table with us the next time. It is good to have you on. Thank you. We're going to unpack some of this before a quick break. You're watching The Weekend.